I love that.
Mhm.
That's a really good one. Good for grounding. I'm recording already.
Perfect. We entered the time portal, baby, where just time is
Yeah.
illusory, it doesn't exist.
Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen within your relationships, your work, and most importantly, with the relationship with yourself. In this podcast, we talk about all things self-love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, and more. Hi, I'm your host, Celia Antonio, and I'm a women's sexuality and self-love coach, a mindfulness expert, and your cheerleader for your most grounded and expansive self-expression. You can connect with me on Instagram at self-expressedbabe, and for all of my guest episodes, there will always be links in the show notes so that you can find them online. I give my deepest thanks to you for being here and spending your precious time with me today. Now let's begin our journey. Hello, everybody. Hello, welcome to Openly Spoken. Today I am going into a just kind of impromptu solo episode to talk about a decision that I've been pondering for probably a year, and that is whether or not to be child-free. And it's such a hard decision to make. And it's something I've had just like extensive conversations about with my friends back and forth, with my husband back and forth for at least a year. And yeah, we'll just get right into it. So, like many girls and many people, socialized as girls, I played with dolls as a kid, and I question and have been questioning lately how much of my desire to have a baby is something that's just been socialized in me. That's something that has just been kind of like something I've been trained to want to do. I'm also the oldest. I grew up with two of my siblings. I do have a third sibling, but we didn't meet until I was like 25. But as the oldest, I remember when my little brother was born. We were 6 years apart. And I used to babysit a lot. And I like question if my strong maternal instincts come from both the training of playing with dolls combined with the having been someone who's cared for children since I was a child myself. Yeah, so that's kind of like one of the things that came up. And also about a year ago, I was on a walk in my neighborhood and just kind of like battling with this decision of whether or not to have kids, because with my husband and I, like, since we've gotten together, we've just kept putting it off because it's just never feels like a right time. And everyone who has kids will always reassure me that the timing never does actually feel quite right, and you just kind of jump in and go for it. So it's definitely been something we've been both pondering. And as I was on this walk, for the very first time, I had this thought of, what if I don't have kids? Like, what if I just don't do that? What would my life look like? And I was out in public for a walk. Luckily, I had my well, not luckily, but I had my sunglasses on so I could hide a little bit, that I just started crying as I was walking. And I had just like all this emotion come up to the surface. And now I'm wondering if that is just a part of me that wanted to have the freedom to acknowledge that there are different ways that I could live life, that I don't have to do what I was socialized to do. So then from there, I actually got together a Zoom like conversation with a couple of other women that I know to talk about both sides of things, for mothers to talk about the experience of motherhood with total just like honesty and candidness. And this was an unrecorded conversation. And then I also had women come on who were child free by choice and wanted to stay that way. And then also women in between, like me, who were questioning it. And it was a beautiful conversation. And yeah, so I've just been kind of like chewing on this for a while. And I'm realizing I've always assumed that I would have kids because I do have strong maternal instincts, whether they're there because of playing with dolls as a kid and because of babysitting my younger siblings, like whether the strong maternal instincts are there because of that or not. I do acknowledge I do have strong maternal instincts. And I do like babies. I used to work in a daycare. I love babies. I love children. I think they're very wise and very magical and very hilarious just because they don't have a filter. But for me personally, that's not enough reason to have a child because there are still so like that is still kind of in a way like romanticizing parenthood, and it's not actually looking at the facts that I live in a country with the highest maternal death rate, and that is absolutely terrifying. Or just how the very fact that we live in this world where we have to work for money and use that money to buy our water and our food and all our basic needs, and that unless I know that not everyone's circumstance is like this, like not everyone has to trade time for money. But it was honestly very stressful to think about taking a break from everything I'm doing here with this podcast on my coaching business, because it honestly is not at a place where it's like taken off or anything. And it's still very much in the beginning phases. And so having this kind of like loose plan with my husband that we were planning on, having every year, we kind of pushed it back. We're like, all right, this is the year we're going to have a baby. And having that plan kind of, I didn't realize until I really started to try on the, how about we really just embody not having a child, was when I realized how much pressure I've been putting on myself to really let this business take off, and to like really like be at a certain place and at certain milestones in my like work and what I'm offering life before I pause to raise a baby. So there's that. There's so many layers here. There's so much, like I don't even know where to meander to next. Um, but I mostly wanted to share this because I know that I'm not alone. I've spoken to a lot of women, a lot of humans lately who are really struggling with making this decision and who flip flop back and forth every day, and people who are, they're a no right now and they're fully solidly a no, but they're also open to the possibility that that could change in the future. I have also recently seen someone that I know who's like 43 and just had her first baby. And, it's really reassuring to see that we have more time than we think. I think as women and people with wombs, we're definitely, um, it's definitely pushed on us that there's this like rush, that there's like our biological clock is ticking. And I even remember being in high school or even in college when we were barely out of high school, seeing on Facebook all my friends like having kids already and just wondering like, wow, what's the rush? Like, why is everyone rushing to that? I don't know. I don't know about that. No, no judgment if you are one of those people. That was just my reaction, just being like, "Oh, wow, they're doing that already." Um, because I've always like, I'm realizing now this is where my perspective comes from. So I was raised by someone who had me at 18 years old, and so it was always very important to me to consciously choose on purpose, I'm going to have a baby, and to be of a certain age. This sounds really silly, but I had this like goal to be at least 28 years old when I had my first child. Only because it was a 10-year gap between how old my mom was when I was a child. And I'm not saying that having a child at, like, I don't want to shame anyone who's decided to have a child at 18. I just personally did not enjoy being raised by someone who wasn't as experienced in life. I love my mom. I know that she loves me. I know that she did her best. But personally, I saw a huge difference in my friends who had older parents versus the parents I had. And it also was not age. I'm sure it was also the fact that my parents were immigrants. And I think the immigrant part and the way I was raised is also becoming a surprising factor in this decision to be child free, at least for now. I am definitely open that it might change, but it feels pretty solid to not have kids at the time of this recording. And it's July 29th, 2024 at the time of this recording, just for context. I'm gonna have some water, 1 second. So for me personally, the immigration piece is, I think, might be one of the things that has really triggered questioning this experience, because I'm currently in the process of getting my green card. I've already applied, and I've already gotten a request for additional evidence, and I've already sent that off. So I know that my file is being looked at, and I know that I can get my green card anytime now, or I can get a notice that my husband and I need to go in for an interview at any time now. And just to give you context of what that means for me, I was born in Germany, and my mother and I moved to America when I was 3 years old. And we came on a vacation visa, and we never left. So I've been on vacation for 31 years. Um, yeah, I'm still on vacation. I guess that means I could be drinking something with alcohol in it, but I'm not very much of a drinker. I love water though. um, okay, so what that means that we stayed on a vacation visa, what that meant for me um, was that when I finally got to the age of like 15, 16, and all of my peers were, having their first jobs, getting their work permits, not work permits, I meant to say driving permits, and starting to learn to do things that give you more freedom and give you more autonomy, I could not participate in that because I didn't have a social security number. And the experience of being an immigrant without the freedom of being able to legally work and being able to, for a while there, I couldn't even travel. Like from the time I graduated high school until I was 25, I couldn't even, actually 23, because that was when I got my social security number. I couldn't even travel within the states because all I had was my high school ID. I didn't have like an actual ID because I had no social security number. Don't ask me how I got into high school or public school. no idea how that happened, but I had no social security number, which meant I had no ID, which meant I couldn't fly. They let you fly when you're a student with your student ID. But I think once you're like 18, you have to have like a government issued ID, and I did not have that. So there's a little bit more of an illustration of how I haven't had a lot of like autonomy or like freedom in my life to be mobile and to go explore and to do the things that I want. Um, and then also just being raised in a home where that freedom to explore as a kid wasn't really there because my parents, they were immigrants. They had to work a lot, and we didn't have very much. Like when I was really young, like we always had food. We always had a great place to live. We always were in great schools, but like there wasn't really any extra money or even like capacity, like attention span and time for my parents to help me nurture my gifts and find what my gifts are. So there's that. And yeah, so now what I have currently is I have DACA, which stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And it basically gave people like me who came to America as children. I think the requirement was you had to be like below 15, I think, who came here as children legally with a visa and who don't have a criminal record and who went to school here. And there are probably a bunch of other requirements, but basically, it gave that group of people a work permit. And then with that work permit, you can go to the Social Security office and you can request a Social Security number. So I've had a Social Security number now for almost 11 years. Um, and that allowed me to finally drive for the first time, get a driver's license. I got my driver's license when I was 25, very late. It allowed me to get a bank account, get a real job, and to travel within the States. And with travel, I technically could travel outside of the US, but the problem is I have a German passport. So coming back into the States would be complicated because I would need to get a visa. And then now I would have a visa that I would have to keep renewing rather than just staying here like I have been staying here for the last 31 years. So now that that is about to end and I'm in the process of applying for my green card, the closer I get to having the freedom to be able to explore and see the world and travel to other countries, knowing that I can come back home, the more motherhood feels like I would be putting myself into a cage after I had just gotten out. And I have chills as I say that because that's like completely popped my view of what I thought life would be like for me. And it's even like popped my whole view of like who I viewed myself to be. Like I've always viewed myself to be like motherhood seemed like, and like, oh yeah, of course I'm going to do that. And it's also been something that has taken up a lot of real estate in my mind of like, because I am in my mid 30s and I'd be lying if I would say it hasn't been a concern. My age has not been a concern for me in terms of like being able to conceive. So it's really weird being in this space where I'm like, yeah, I think I'm not going to have kids. It's really, really weird. It's really wild. And I want to share this because I wanted to come share this on this podcast because I think this is a very important part of self love, of being able to allow yourself to try on things that you didn't expect that you would do in life, and to see how that makes you feel, and to show up for those feelings. Because the last like week or so, I've never cried so much about this decision to not have kids. It's definitely been a huge grief. And at the same time, it's been a huge relief, and it's felt very expansive, and it's felt very much like I feel a lot less pressure now to um, find my next coaching client. I feel a lot less pressure now to make more money. I feel a lot less pressure, and feeling that relief of that pressure isn't doing very much convincing for me to actually have a child, because like if I'm already feeling the release of pressure now, I just wonder how stressed I would feel if I did have an extra mouth to feed. And part of this as well, and I would love to know if you resonate with these thoughts, but part of this decision as well is just the fact that this we live in like this game where there's like politics, money, and we're living in these like buildings where it's just one family living in there. I mean, not everyone does that, depending on your situation, even like your culture. I know that a lot of family members live together, and I think that that's beautiful. But what I mean to say is like the way that we are living right now in the modern world is very unnatural. And a thought that I've had for myself is that I would have kids or a kid if we were living like in the forest and or like if we were living somewhere that was a little bit more like community focused, and somewhere that was more living more in tune with nature, like a little bit more like tribal living kind of style, rather than what we're living in now. Because personally, in our situation, when I think about the facts of having a baby, I just realize how much pressure would be and responsibility would be put on me and me alone. Not that I don't have a great partner, but I think that's universal across the board for women and for birthing people, is that a lot of the responsibility is kind of disproportionate. A lot of it is put on the mom or the birthing person, um, because they're the only one that can, um, when a baby is born, they're not differentiating yet that mom is separate. They see mom as a part of themselves still, because they just came out of her. And so it's very dysregulating when a baby is separated from mom. And what's ironic about that is that, like, knowing that I wanted to be a mom one day is one of the biggest reasons why I decided to start a business, because I did not want to be on maternity leave just for 3 months to then go back to work. And yeah, this is really having me question literally everything. And it is absolutely insane. And I would love to know if anyone listening or watching this on YouTube feels the same. If you're listening, go over to the YouTube video. I'll put the link in the show notes, and leave me a comment below on what's coming up for you in this conversation, and maybe what you might be questioning for yourself. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to say. I didn't really like write down notes. I just thought I would come on here and just freely speak. Um, let's see. I think the whole thing for me really just boils down to the freedom piece because of my own childhood and teenagehood and young adult life of not having so much freedom from the home I was raised in and from the immigration circumstance that I have been dealing with my whole life. And because that has hindered my freedom, I want to be free. I don't want to be tied down to one neighborhood because I have to pick my child up from school every day at 3 p.m. And I also don't want to homeschool as well. Like, I know that there's so many different options of how you can raise and educate your kids, but they all don't sound fun to me. They all don't sound nice. Like, when I think of all of them, I'm like, nah, not for me. And when my strong maternal instincts look around at the world that we're currently living in, she just goes, nah, not here. Not not here, not in the year 2024. Not right now. No. This is like it just seems like it would be unfair and selfish to have a baby. And I do believe that no matter and I mean this with the most love as possible, but I do think whether you decide to have a kid or you don't decide to have a kid, I think they're both selfish. I think both like all the reasons are selfish because it should be selfish. It's your own life. There's nothing bad about it. I'm not saying that it's bad to be selfish, but it is your life and you get to be selfish about your life and you get to be selfish about, I mean, not about everything in your life, but you get to be, I think when it comes to the decision of having children, you should get to be selfish about it because it's going to impact the rest of your life. And that's why it's so hard to see what's being done to take away reproductive rights right now. And personally, I have had 2 abortions myself. I had one when I was 25 and then one when I was 28. And when I was 25 and I had my first abortion, that really switched something in me internally of how I relate to myself. Like, I felt like a mother in me was born, but it was a mother that could mother myself better. And it's been such a huge journey because I've lost a lot of friends over it. Not everyone agrees about abortion being, the right thing to do. A lot of people will just label you as a murderer or a horrible person. And, I didn't, when everything with Roe v. Wade was happening, I really did want to talk about it on my social media at the time. At the time, I was very active on my Instagram, which I'm not currently active there right now, but I remember wanting to talk about how safe access to abortion is very important. And I just didn't have the capacity to do that yet. So I guess I wanted to share that to just tell you that it's okay to take space for yourself. And I think it's important to take space for yourself to heal. Because when you talk about something on the internet or on a podcast, it is going to be seen and heard by a lot of people. And so you shouldn't be talking about things that afterwards you just want to cry for weeks about it. I think that's a telltale sign that you weren't ready to share that. And I'm well aware that sharing openly that I've had 2 abortions could bring people into the comments that say things that I have already heard millions of times. And I know that those reactions have nothing to do with me because I'm good with my choice. I think the two abortions I've had are honestly the best investments I've ever made into my future. And I knew that I was ready to finally talk about it publicly when I hate saying talk about it publicly. It makes me sound like I'm like, oh, I'm a celebrity, which I'm not. This world is so weird how we all talk about our own lives on social media and podcasts. Really weird. Anyways, I was recording a podcast episode with a friend. We never ended up publishing it. And we somehow got on the topic of abortion. And she was telling me how she's never met somebody who has not regretted having an abortion. And, I just let her talk. And once she was done, I was like, I want to offer my opinion. I've had two abortions and I don't regret them at all. I think they are the best decisions that I could have ever made. And the first time it was an immediate nope, gotta get rid of this, because I was it like the relationship I was in was not healthy at all. I had actually ended the relationship 2 weeks before I found out I was pregnant, and it was an immediate like nope, this person is not going to be the father of my child, and this child is not going to have this person as their dad. This child is not going to have me as their mom right now. I can barely take care of myself. It was an immediate no. And before that experience, I thought, like, I mean, I've never really identified as pro life. I think you can still be pro choice um, and hold that abortion isn't something you would do because that's your choice. Um, so I've never identified with being pro life, but growing up, I definitely have had conversations about abortion before with my friends. And I always thought it was something that I would never, ever do until I was in the situation where I was pregnant. And I was like, no, nope, 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 nope. The second time around was a little bit harder because, in all honesty, at the time, I did want to go through the pregnancy. I'm really fucking glad I didn't. Now that it's like, how many years later? I don't even know, 6, maybe longer. Um, but at the time, I was about to move to New York. My finances were in shambles, and I just could not see how it could work. And so I'm very, very grateful for the access to have been able to say no to having a child. And I think it's very important to make more space to honor and to celebrate people who have decided to end a pregnancy or people who have decided to be child free. I think there's a lot of assuming that it's like our duty for some reason to procreate when like we already have enough people. We don't need more. And not to mention the climate and the economy. There's so many layers. And I think the fellow millennials who are listening or watching can definitely relate. Like, our generation has, I mean, every generation has been through a lot, but our generation has already been through a lot financially. And in my opinion, I think having a child, this sounds really horrible to say, having a child sounds to me like a financial risk. And that sounds awful to say because children are humans. And I do very much honor anyone and everyone who has decided to have kids. For me, though, it's a no. It's a no. I am really shocked by that, but that's where we're at right now. And this is what I've been kind of grappling with I mean, I've been chewing on it for like a year, but the last like 2 weeks has been just like such deep roller coaster of emotions about this decision. And I just wanted to share that with you to just in case anyone else resonates. And I invite you to leave a comment if you're on YouTube. If you're listening, I invite you to click the YouTube link, leave a comment, and let's have a respectful discussion about this. And yeah, I'll just end things here. Thank you so much for letting me ramble on, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.